Alright, what's good with y'all? It's your boy Prince the Hustle God. It's a cool black affair. We reaching in our combat tool bag again. We're gonna talk Tank Davis and his recent interviews, and obviously Tank Davis versus Rolando Romero. So let's get into it. So Tank Davis recently in his interview with Brian Custer, uh, in an angry response, he states he'll fight Devin Haney next, since he's doing all of this talking, and that's in reference to Devin Haney stating that you should just stay with Floyd Mayweather and be loyal, since you're not going to make those fights, those big fights. That said, Tank exploded like, well, I'll fight him next, type stuff. And yeah, it just kind of exposed him, because he hasn't been trying to make any big fights. He's 27, he's turning 28 years old. He's older than all of the other up and coming lightweights. Devin Haney and I believe Ryan Garcia. Devin Haney is the youngest. Then I think Ryan Garcia. Then I think Teofimo Lopez. Then Tank, and then you also have like Loma as the old wise man. That said, Loma, with his expedited route, he's gotten the names. Teo fighting Loma, and Kome garnered him a name or two. But Tank, being the oldest of them all, has only fought, I believe, Gamboa, Pedraza, and there's no real need to mention Barrios, as who's Barrios, to be honest, at this point. But that in turn caused other lightweights and super featherweights to challenge Gamboa, such as Devin Haney. Devin Haney fought Gamboa as well. Isaac Cruz fought Gamboa as well. Kurt was called him Sherbert, but Colbert lobbied to fight Gamboa. But I digress. So being the oldest of them all and being kind of protected by Mayweather Promotions, he also mentions that this will be his last fight with Mayweather Promotions, and or at least Brian Custer got him to articulate it, that hey, this is my last fight, and that there's no hard feelings. But he kind of backpedaled on that by saying that he doesn't necessarily have to leave Mayweather Promotions to be his own boss or to be his own man, but he did state that he will be leaving them. So, but that does, I can't overlook the fact that he double talked and saying that in the past they only wanted him to fight Rolly because this is his last fight, and that made him, in the eyes of myself and a few other fans, I believe, that that kind of sounds scary. Like, why you feel like this is a setup fight, or they would make you fight Rolly of all people as your last fight to try to make you look bad in some way, shape, or form. But I guess this is just the story of the fight, if you will, the war log. A whole lot of petty, like, little girl type stuff. But when we talk about the actual fight, when we look at the actual fight, that's when it gets exciting. It's getting me a little more excited than maybe I should, being a boxing purist, if you will. But the unorthodox nature of Rolly Romero and his lack of experience, but his explosiveness and his power, it leaves you to question, like, because of Tank's last performance in birthing Isak Cruz, like, what what possibly can happen with Rolly, and the theory of there's always a puncher's chance. But then in that same vein, a boxer only limits a puncher to a puncher's chance because of their IQ and their wherewithal and experience uh, in those four corners. So if I'm actually analyzing the fight, looking at it for how I see it, yes, it's possible that Rolly could catch Tank and clip him, and I hope so for the sake of excitement. But the higher IQ, the fact that Rolly isn't that much bigger than Tank, and Tank is also a puncher himself, but a boxer puncher, leaves me to believe that the boxer will always succeed in the war between the boxer and the puncher, and not necessarily always, but the better boxer will succeed in the war between the boxer and the puncher. If the puncher was better of a puncher than the boxer was a boxer, then that changes things. Like an anomaly like the King Deontay Wilder, that's an exception to the rule. Or Ernie Shavers or George Foreman, that's an exception to the rule, But I digress. That said, I think Tank Davis gets Rolly with a late TKO. I don't believe he actually knocks Rolly out. If he does, that may change a lot in the landscape of how people view the top lightweight. Granted, Devin Haney will become undisputed if it's not a blatant robbery. But I do think that'll shake up the lightweight division, and as far as excitement goes. But Tank, he comes out on the Brian Custer podcast, and he says a lot. It's recorded at their press conference, so it's older, but it's released with a lot of new statements that are unheard. So definitely check that out. Shout out to the mighty LDBC. Again, this was a Code Black Affair. Until next time.